we're getting
my PhD has been a bit chaotic. I've been working on different things, but over the past few months, I've been working on the development of a single droplet mass spectrometer approach using droplet assisted ionization, which I'll now refer to as DAI from now on. But actually, I'm going to just talk about plume droplet mass spectrometry instead, and then talk about the future work later on as well. So yeah, just to go through what I'm going to talk about as well, just a bit of basic theory behind mass spectrometry, which is the technique that we're using. Also the ionization techniques, so ESI, which is electrospray ionization, as well as DAI mass spec. And then I'm just going to go through some of the recent results that we've had, which is looking at esterification rate enhancement in the droplet phase, and then also what I'm developing as my future work as well. So yeah, just to go through my awesome diagram here that will have this great animation that you'll see. These are over here just some ionized molecules, and I'll talk about how we generate those in a sec. But just to go through, they'll move through the mass spectrometer, and you'll see some of the neutral particles move away from these charged molecules. As there's a slight kink in the directory of the mass spec, and then these are guided into a beam that pass through this quadrupole here, similar to what Jamie's using actually. So this quadrupole selects mass, and we're able to change the frequency and the amplitude of those rods in the quadrupole to size select. So what we're able to do is choose the mass of the molecules that are charged in here as well. And then this will pass through what's known as an ion mobility separator. So if you think about a piece of paper and you scrunch it up and you drop it on the floor, it's going to hit the ground a lot quicker than a piece of paper that is, just flat. And that's because of the surface area of these molecules. And the way that we do that is by passing an inert helium gas over the molecules in the opposite direction that they're traveling, to slow them down accordingly. So yeah, they pass through here, and then they reach this detection phase called quant-off, which is quantitative time of flight. And these molecules of different mass to charge ratios will travel at different times to the ion detection system. Just to brush over some of the maths, let me just flip through this. We come across a mass to charge ratio eventually, which is dependent on the distance that it travels through the quant-off, as well as the mass to charge ratio of the ions within there as well. And that's the time recorded there. So how do we generate our molecular ions or fragment ions, as you'll see? So the commercial technique that comes across with the mass spectrometer that we're using is electrospray ionization. It's known as a soft ionization technique, which means that it doesn't just blow up the molecule. We're able to look at the molecular ion itself, and that will just fragment very softly as you increase the voltage. So yeah, just to talk about how we generate these droplets that undergo this rapid desolvation. The liquid supply is pushed through a capillary, and then this capillary is pulsed with a high voltage, which causes this breakdown of surface to charge interaction, causing this coulombic fission, as it's known. And then DAI, which is the technique that we've been developing here in Bristol, looks at just generating droplets as an ambient way of ionizing our droplets. So perhaps this is a softer ionization technique as well. It will pass through into the mass spec, which is known as a synapse, G2S, and this will be heated usually, causing desolvation to occur further. So yeah, just to go through some of the previous literature as well, we can see that with Horan over in the US, looked at heating up a capillary which the nanoparticles pass through, and then rehumidifying them to look at the ionization efficiency, which increases linearly here with on a logarithmic scale with temperature. And then also taking this this measurement further, this is looking at size selection of the aerosol and seeing if that is affecting the ionization efficiency as well, which it doesn't seem to be as we get this flat line here. So yeah, this is a schematic of what I'm using so far. So it's pretty basic, but we're also looking at the size distribution alongside of the chemical composition analysis. And this is our wet droplet flow going into a Nafion dryer, which will dry out our particles, giving us a dry particle size distribution. We're also able to calculate the total mass flow rate as a result by looking at this distribution, and knowing the relative molecular mass of glutaric acid. We can also calculate the counts that we see in the mass spectra per molecule that we actually gather through the SMPS as well. So yeah, just to go on to some of the results that I've been looking at. So yeah, we looked at glutaric acid initially, as it's quite a well-referenced molecule with the new mass spectrometer that we have. And yeah, just to describe what's going on here, this is a negative ion mode. So we're looking at only negative ions only. And glutaric acid deprotonates very readily, which is why we see such a high signal here at 131. Which is -1 of the molecule itself. And then here with carbitol, we see a protonated version at 135, which is 1 plus the molecule. So just to go over some of the esterification work that I've been doing. Previously, there was some work done by people in Bristol, actually, that looked at a bulk esterification reaction, which requires 160 degrees for 16 hours, which is a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy compared to this droplets dehydration that we saw on the aerosol phase, which allowed that esterification reaction to occur a lot quicker. So we decided to put this mixture through the mass spectrometer, and we can see a few signals above the 135 and the 157, which I should say, rather than the protonated version, we have a sodiated version. So you'll see +22, because that is an extra sodium rather than a proton, for anyone that's interested in that. And yeah, we also, so yeah, just to talk about what we see here, we see a few signals. At 249, we would expect to see our monoester, and we would also expect to see it at 271 and 287. And the reason for that is because rather than having a proton, you would have this sodium or potassium ion even instead of that, which would be detected in this positive ion mode. So we did a tandem mass spec, which when I was talking about the quadrupole, you're able to select the mass specifically and essentially look at what fragments from those specified molecular ions. And we can see here that at 249, which is what we would expect, we actually only see what we saw for carbitol, which suggests that it's either an intermediate or just a dehydrated double cluster of carbitol itself. Whereas for these other three peaks, which I'll just give the proposed split formula here, we can see that they produce exactly the same spectra, or nearly exactly the same spectra, which we have deduced to be the monoester produced as well. Just to go through this is something that we sort of have to do. It's kind of like a forensic analysis of determining what signals we're seeing for our mass to charge ratio. So something that we did as well, we moved our Nafion dryer to before the detection of the mass spec. So we dried out our droplets before it went into the mass spec. And the proposal here is that from that droplet drying, we're going to increase the rapidity of that dehydration and essentially enhance that esterification rate. And this is what we saw. So just to flip between the slides, we can see signals here at about 271 and 287, which are very tiny when you're just putting it through as a wet aerosol, but they considerably increase as you dry those droplets, which is pretty cool. Yeah, there they are. And here's just a schematic of what was before and after when we did the droplet drying. Also, we did this as a temperature dependence, and we can see roughly as you increase the temperature from about 40 degrees to 150 degrees, you see the monoester increase in the signal by about 3-fold, but you actually see between the dryer and no dryer, you see it increase by about 10-fold. So that's a pretty good finding for us. And just to talk about the single droplet stuff that is currently being developed right now, it's quite similar to what Jamie uses. It's a linear quadrupole electrodynamic balance, single droplet assisted inlet ionization mass spectrometer. And this is a picture that Jim took, which I'd like to say right now, thank you, Jim, for all your help. Yeah, so here we can see some levitated water droplets in a very similar sort of chamber to what people in Bark use as well. We're planning to make this as a double chamber, so we have a sort of holding cell and then we drop one down to analyze as it gets sucked into the mass spectrometer. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, John. Do you have any questions in the reading?
Thanks, Josh. You said about the timescale involved with this esterification reactions at 60 minutes.
No, but you know, the time between aerosolization and getting to the mass spectrometer is likely to be less than a second. So it's a lot quicker than 16 hours. One thing that we are planning to do, as well as the single droplet stuff, is look at just increasing that time. So maybe putting it on a scale of seconds and seeing if we can increase that yield of the monoester, which I should say right now is, you know, a monoester that's used commercially as a lubricant. The reason why we were looking at those two compounds is to see if we could make a diester as well with the diacid. And also we use a low volatility alcohol to reach that esterification. But yeah, planning to build a flow tube in order to increase that time scale as well.
You have another question over here, I think. Yeah, okay, yeah. I think 3 people have the same question for you, Josh. So you answered that one very well. Right. Is there anything that's not online, Jonathan? Brilliant. Okay. So thank you very much, Josh, again, and thank you to all of our other speakers from the tech. And the session keep using the break as well. So we really enjoyed hearing from all of our Cohort 1 speakers.
Thanks very much, Rachel. That's I hope you found that quite a challenging document, because the breadth of the topics we covered just underline some of them. We've gone from carbon nanotubes to inhalable nanomedicines for treating tuberculosis, to the impacts of airborne particles on health, to volcanoes, to ice melts, to the immune techniques and the action rate enhancements. I think it's just amazing that the breadth of work there on CBT, the breadth of aerosol science as a discipline, and I think it's just really exciting to begin to now see some of the outputs from excellent investment in terms of CBT and some of the science that we're able to begin to develop. So congratulations to all of the first, second, third cohort students who presented posters and talks today. I'd like just to get them all around the board. I'd like Yale and Sam to come to the front, and also Kate to turn on her camera. So, Kate, can you say something? Okay, so we can put you on the big screen.
Hello, everyone. That was excellent. A brilliant set of.
But that's fine. So I just want to acknowledge B-side in particular for today and tomorrow. So, you know, as a CDT, the reason this CDT functions, hopefully, so smooth, well, certainly functions very smoothly from my perspective, and I hope it does from yours, is really a credit to B-side. I'm sure many of you have had correspondence with Kate over the years. So much has recently joined the team. Yale takes a lead on all of our events in 50% role of work partnership. So partners, they want to tell us about that correspondence with Yale. So thanks to Yale primarily for leading the organisation of today and tomorrow, but to this group of 3 people who have been CDT would not be anything like it does, or anything like that. So thank you. And thank you very much for all for attending. I hope you had a great day. It's not the end. We have this room to 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm not sure anyone's still standing at that point. We do have to clear it now so they can set it up for the banquet this evening. And I hope that, you know, I hope we'll see many of you back here for that event. I'm quite excited about the menu that I've seen. So please do come back for the banquet. And we also look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you're a partner or an academic at the South here, remember that's a different venue, that's not here. And if you're a student, back at the summer school. So thanks everyone for attending. Great day, really enjoyed it. Hope to see you later.
Thanks, Kate. Sorry you couldn't be here with us.
Oh, I miss you guys. Enjoy the dinner. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, we can't hear you, unfortunately. I don't know why. Oh, you're muted, that's why.
Oh.
But I don't think we could hear you when you did unmute. For some reason it's not coming through now. I think he turned it down so I've been dealing with the sound since the tea break. So we just need to turn the volume up and I can't do that. Anyway, have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.